My name is Regina Halpin. I'm a recently retired principal, and I was principal for 11 years in a big school in Dublin West, Divine Mercy Senior School. And when I heard about Pew, when Porrick spoke about Pew, for me it was like an answer to prayer, because it meant then that I could stack all of the initiatives that were coming and to put them down in order of preference, if you like, for the staff, that we could talk about it and see what we were going to focus on, what we were already doing, to acknowledge that, and then embedding. And then if somebody came up with a new idea, we could put it onto the wait list. So I had it like it was a real system change for us. And I had it for the whole school. So say we were looking at bringing in the green flag, just say something like that. We were able to put that onto the top. And whatever else we were doing, like the student council or well-being or whatever, would go down further down the list. So that was working really well. But I wasn't getting a huge amount of buy-in from the staff. They would look at it, and I would have it up in the staff room, and I had it in my office. But they weren't really taking it on. So I decided to bring it down to another level. So we did it at a school level. Like, what two priorities are we going to focus on for the whole school this year? So I suggest, I could see them all kind of looking at me as if, oh God, what is she going to say now? Or what is she going to make us do now? But what I did was, I said two very simple things. The first one was that they were all going to line up in order, leaving their classroom. Coming in from the playground was never really an issue, but when the doors were open, they were going out to the playground, there was mayhem. So I said, they need to line up in order and walk out in single file. And then all the teachers were looking at me saying, is that it? And I said, one more thing is that every child should have a red pen and a ruler, and they should rule their copybook and write the date on the top with the red pen. So they were two very simple things, and because they were simple, everybody was able to do it, and I got great buy-in on that. They were just two things that I think needed tightening up. So after that, that was like a whole school-wide. Then I brought it down to a class level. So in third classes, I got the teachers to think about what was their priority areas. What were they already doing in their classes? What was being embedded and what was being implemented? And then things that they, the kids might come up with that could go onto their wait list. So we started doing that at a class level. So all the third class teachers came together and they identified their own priority. The fourth class teachers did the same, and the fifth and the sixth. So there was like a 3-tier system for the Pew model. One was the big one for the school, the systemic, the big ticket ones, if you like. So ASD classroom, the new primary curriculum coming in, something like that, that everybody was focused on, and that was for the whole school. The next one was for a whole school-wide, that the whole school could get involved in the lining up and the red pen. And then in your own class, what were you as a teacher? What did you see as your priority area that you wanted the children in the third classes to all do, whatever it was, and in fourth class and fifth? And they could be really simple. But what it meant was that people started to think about their priority areas. Then they had to check in with each other to see how they were going. They had to move it on, set new priorities. And then once they started doing that at their own micro level, I suppose, then there was bigger buy-in to the school one. And then there was, oh, right, that's what we do in here. This is how we prioritize things in the school. So people became more familiar with the Pew model rather than it being something that was coming from the principal and the deputy principal or the in-school leadership team. Because in reality, when I would be talking to them about it, they were smiling at me, but they didn't really get it. They didn't understand how important it was, and that if there was an inspection or a WSE, they would be able to talk about it with credibility. This is what we do in our school. This is the big picture. This is the one that we're doing in the school overall for all of the children, and this is what we're doing at class level. And it has worked really well. And they have, I made up Pew stickers or charts for each classroom and gave them to teachers. So I spoon fed them initially, but now it's up and it's working and they know what they're doing. And when they're having their team meetings, they talk about that. That's on their agenda for their planning. So works really well.